there was a whole bunch of talk about, hey, there's going to be this huge wave of, all the people that were in forbearance are going to go into foreclosure and short sale, and there's going to be a crash. The real estate market's going to crash. And I'm just telling you right now, I don't see it. I don't see it. I think that we are headed into some serious inventory problems here, headed into 2022. Let's talk about it. Hey, welcome back to the Living in Coastal Virginia channel. My name is Dan Inman, your local realtor and guide, and I genuinely think that there is going to be some problems in 2022 when it comes to buying and selling. Inventory is at legitimately all-time lows since like 2004. And I want to go over some of the data. I'm going to go into kind of some subjective, what I think I see, and what I think the numbers are directly pointing to. Some of this is art, some of this is science. Obviously, I'm rubbing that crystal ball, and hopefully I'm wrong in some capacity. Hopefully you can use some of this to make decisions for you and your family moving forward here into 2022. So taking a quick look, what I have open here is effectively called, it's our analytics board that we have available through the MLS. The data goes back to 2004, and we're gonna look at a couple of things. Right now I have median sales price. Obviously, as you see the prices go down, that is what's called depreciation. As you go up, that's called appreciation. You can see here, right here on this chart, back in 2020, that the gap or the jump in appreciation prices was more aggressive than the previous years. And that's where you see, hey, 7% appreciation, 10% appreciation. That's where you're seeing this larger jump in the overall values. But there's a couple things I want to look at. One is going to be active listings. This is really the part that I think, I don't want to really use the word scary because it sounds gloom and doom, fire and brimstone, and it almost feels like fear mongering. However, it's definitely something serious that we need to pay attention to. Active listings just means how many homes are currently available on the market. And if we look back all the way to 2004, we saw somewhere in the range, and this is monthly, right? So in the month of, let's say, March of 2004, we had 3,486 listings available for currently on the market for sale. You see this explosion, right? And this is where we saw the housing market went nuts, right? Obviously, as sellers saw, holy crap, I can get a lot more value for my home, more and more people put their house on the market because they were trying to take advantage of that equity and maybe move up, right? And so you see this enormous spike all the way into 2006 and then 2007. 2007 is when we had that initial housing crash. And the main purpose for that is because there were people that were getting loans that shouldn't. A market that was artificially inflated because there are too many buyers in a market that shouldn't have been there. Now, there's a mixture of reasons why that was. You can go and watch The Big Short. Maybe that'll be over my left shoulder here now. Lots of great actors. The movie is actually quite compelling. They do a pretty good job of explaining different parts of how everything happened. But effectively, most of the reasons that would exist to drive the market to go up so fast and then to crash do not exist today. I have not had a single person that has complained to me about how easy it was to get their loan. The underwriting process is pretty daggone thorough. If anything, most people are complaining about, hey Dan, underwriting is asking for another document. So unfortunately, Rachel gets the majority of those complaints because she works in the lending side. And then I get to go, oh man, yeah, they're such a pain in the butt. Anyway, so back to the story here. So 2007, you can see it between 2007 all the way to 2010, it hovered or averaged around somewhere in the range of like 16,000 to 17,000 active listings, right? Today, as of December, right, the end of December, we're at 3,680 listings, or active listings. That is crazy low. Now, our market did not start to recover until 2000-ish and 12, right? So let me go back over to the median sales price here. You can see that the market went down, right? So we had the crash. There are lots of foreclosure and short sales that came in the market. It kind of hovered. Another wave came in, and then 2012 right here is where the market basically bottomed out and it restarted to climb, right? Now, this appreciating market right here is what shouldn't have happened. It happened too quickly, right? So the average appreciation for probably the last 150 years, according to the Case-Shiller Index, inflation adjusted, is about 3.4%, right? When you have this much appreciation, that's when there's potentially a problem. And not just potentially a problem, this appreciation was artificially being had because these were buyers that should not have been in the market. The main reason for today, again, if I go back over here to active listings, is not because there are not buyers that shouldn't be in the market, but because inventory is so stinking low. So 2012, you can see that there's this slow decrease, 2018, 19, 2020 right here, is right here. There was this slow decrease in active listings. Now you see this precipitous like drop off. Now, part of that was COVID. You know, there were a lot of people that said, I don't want people coming through my house. I'm nervous about this out there. Some of those were totally legitimate fears. You know, if you had any comorbidities or you were high risk, you know, there's no sense in putting your house on the market and exposing yourself to that risk. So what I was reading was a lot of people were saying, hey, look, you know, hopefully more inventory is going to come, interest rates are going to rise, so the market is going to level off. Or there was a whole bunch of talk about, hey, there's going to be this huge wave of, you know, all the people that were in forbearance are going to go into foreclosure and short sale, and there's going to be a crash. The real estate market's going to crash. And I'm just telling you right now, I don't see it. I don't see it. There's two factors, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. You have supply and you have demand. Supply is just not there, right? It's just not. You have all of, you're way down here. We are literally at a quarter to almost a fifth of what we were active listings. And I would argue that a healthy market somewhere between 2012, 13, 14, 15, where we had 13 to 14,000, 12 to 14, 15,000 active listings, that was probably a healthy market. We saw average appreciation during that time. It was still a little bit of a seller's market, but it wasn't what we are seeing today with all these cash guarantees, you know, inspection waived, multiple offers, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 above listing. I mean, it's just, it was a little bit crazy during the summer. And what I'm seeing here is, all right, so the summer of 2021 was May, June, July, August, 6,000. We're almost half of what we were during the summer. That is insane. One more thing I want to kind of look at here is just going to be settled sales, right? So you have supply and you have demand. So another thing to think about is like, all right, well, out of all those homes, we have less inventory. Shouldn't sales be down? And that's not necessarily the case. Since 2011 or 10 right here, you can see this slow increase where over time there have been more and more sales, right? So the amount of homes sold has actually gone up even though inventory is down. This means people are out there, they're compromising on what they want, right? You know, I really want to push here, but there's 5 different offers and I have to take what's available. I have to be in the house in the next 60 to 90 days. And so I don't really have much choice. I have to take what's available in front of me, and there's just no room for negotiation. So the other side of the equation on the supply demand kind of curve in basic economics, so you're looking at, you know, either increase or decrease supply or increase or decrease demand, and pricing tends to be at the intersection of those two, right? So if you're adjusting both of those. So like I was saying, so what we're looking at is settled sales. This is a perfect indication. Now, Showing Time, which is owned by Zillow, they put out numbers on like buyer traffic, which is effectively, they're measuring how many showing requests are showing up, right? So you go in there and your agent goes, hey, I want a showing request for my buyer at such and such time. So they track that, and that is kind of their metric on how much foot traffic is out there. The more showing requests, the more perceived amount of people that are going through homes, which would be a somewhat good metric to look at on how much buyer traffic is out there. Another one that loan officers do is how many loan apps are they receiving, right? So as loan apps go up, you would assume that there are more and more buyers that are out in the market. That has also gone up. So what would decrease the amount of buyers that are out there on that supply-demand curve? And the number one thing that influences that is interest rate. So if I scoot over here, and I'm gonna pull this up right here, boom. This is a chart that I'm looking at put out by MyKCM, which is Keeping Current Matters. It's a software, or excuse me, a company that puts out information for real estate agents so they can convey information to their clients pretty easily. So this is a mixture of 4 different people. You have Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, Mortgage Banking Association, that's NBA, and NAR, National Association of Realtors. And this is the mortgage rate projections for 2022. You have Q1, 2, 3, and 4. You can see across the board, when they average all of them, we're looking at 3.3, 3.43, 3.55, and 3.7. What we're looking at is almost everyone is saying, hey, interest rates are probably going to go up. How fast and how much is up for debate. You can see as high as 4 and as low as 3.7 by the end of the year. But let me show you why this doesn't make as much of a difference as you might think. The average sales price in Virginia Beach for detached homes, I think is like $370. I think the average between detached and attached homes, so it's townhomes and condos, right around $350. Okay, so I have $350 here. Right now, interest rates are hovering around 3.25. I think last year the average was about 3%. They're going up slightly. My wife has had several people where they locked them in to an interest rate, and the next day, literally rates went up, and so they locked in just in time. But $350 at 3.25 is a payment of $1,523. We'll say $1,525. Make the math easy. If by the end of the year, rates, and this is by the end of the year, the entire year, it goes up to 4.0, right? So 0.75%, we're looking at $1,671. So let's use $1,675, right? That is $150. The reality is for the person who's looking at the average price point, $150 is not enough, or historically has not been enough to keep them from moving forward, right? If your numbers are so tight in your budget that $150 you go, I can no longer afford a house, one, you probably shouldn't be buying a home in the first place. And what I was talking about with Sean before this is that no one is able to perfectly do this in the past. You don't go back 9 months and go, oh man, if I was able to buy 9 months ago, my interest rate would have been this, and my mortgage payment would have been $100 less. Yeah, but that's 9 months ago. You can't change it, period. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to make decisions based on what today is, right? Because you're out there making offers today. You can, however, project out into the future to say, okay, well, if I'm going to speculate where I think interest rates are going, I can get a good idea of like, well, if I make a decision today versus a decision tomorrow, how much am I saving, and or what is the opportunity cost of delaying that decision? So Sean had brought up to me earlier that he had somebody that wanted to have a conversation, and he's like, hey, you need to talk to Dan and Rachel, and they were thinking about delaying. And so I was trying to talk about what would be a good decision today versus tomorrow. We'll go into that a little bit more about what my suggestions will be here in just a second, but I want to cover this concept here of why I don't think that the raise in interest rates are going to make as much of an influence on the overall market and how much appreciation, why I think this can hurt us right now. So look, if it goes from 3.25 to 4%, yes, $150 is $150. It kind of sucks, but most people that are like, hey, I'm moving, I want to buy, they're weighing the cost of renting versus the cost of buying, like which one should be better for me. Most people are not making that decision not to buy because it's $150 more. They're just not. I can tell you most people, yeah, they would hope, maybe they're calling their lender saying, hey, what it would cost to buy down rate? Is this the best rate that you can give me? Those types of conversations are happening. It's always going to happen in a rising interest rate market, right? Because people are trying to get the best value they possibly can. But it's not keeping them from buying a loan. So let's say that the increase, and this is something Rachel and I were debating, is like, how much of the market does it take away? 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%? It's probably not going to be more than 10%. It's going to affect most people at the lowest barrier to entry, right? The people who are buying 5, 6, 700,000 or more homes, that interest rate is not changing their decisions. It's not affecting them that much. But the person who can barely afford a $175,000 or $200,000, $225,000 home, the change in the interest rate of $100 may be enough for them to go, shoot, I can no longer afford this. So it's just not going to remove that much out of the market, which means that your supply and demand, supply is down again. It's actually lower than it was than last year so far. So unless we see a huge influx of listings, which we'll go into forbearance here in just a second, I just don't see it. I don't see a huge change in the market, which means that we're probably going to see, most projections are showing, again, these major institutions are showing that appreciation is probably going to be between 6, 7, 8, or 9% appreciation. I would venture to say they might actually be wrong. If interest rates go up maybe at 3.75 by the end of the year or 4, it's not going to be enough to decrease it that much. And we may see as much as 10 or 11 or 12% appreciation in 2022. So the only other thing that could make a big change here would be the forbearance numbers. If the forbearance numbers were to skyrocket and there were a bunch of foreclosures, we'd have a bunch of listing inventory that came to the market, and it also probably would be discounted, right? Here's the problem with that. In this article, which was literally produced today, we have distressed foreclosure in the market, right? One, there are far fewer home owners that are in trouble this time, okay? Yes, we had a huge influx of forbearance that came into the market. As of last Friday, right, through the Mortgage Banking Association, here are the numbers. 38.6% left the program paid in full, meaning they entered the program because they took advantage of it. And then when the time was up, they went ahead and either made all their payments that they were past due, or made up almost all of their past due payments, or they paid off the loan in full. 6.9% went ahead and just paid off the loan in full. Okay, 44% negotiated workout repayment plans. This has been big. A lot of basically the federal government has come and said, hey, make it available, make it possible for you to stay in your homes. So much so that there are 40-year loan products that you can refinance into. 29% of those received a loan deferral, 14.1% received a loan modification, and 0.8% arranged a different repayment plan. Okay, only 0.6% sold as a short sale or a deed in lieu. 16.8% left the program still in trouble without a loss mitigation in place. All right, so out of all of those that entered into forbearance, only 16.8% left in. So what does that leave over? What does 16.8% look like? Well, the amount of total number of people still in forbearance was at 890,000. Okay, so that may sound like a large amount, but the problem is that this is much, much smaller than 2007 and 8. Okay, so if we go down here, what we can see is out of that 16.8%, most of these people have seen anywhere between 7 to 10% appreciation in 2020, anywhere between 8 and 14% or higher appreciation in some of the, like, let's see, Colorado and Arizona and certain places of Texas and Florida have seen actually higher appreciation than that. Is even if they're still in that forbearance program, they are in a position where they could sell, still have equity left over to make money in their property. So the numbers are just not anywhere close to where they were in 2007. If I go down here and I look at the active amount of new foreclosures, 2017 was 314,000, 18 was 279,000, 2019 was 277. Here's interesting, right? So with the appreciation, you can see that actually it was half in 2020, so 129,000. And through Q3 of 2021, we are at 29,000. The numbers are not there. They're not there to go, hey, there's this big wave of foreclosures coming and it's gonna drastically influence the market and there's gonna be a bubble that pops. So I guess a quick recap here. One, interest rates, even though they are going to rise, just not gonna have the influence you think they're going to have, okay? Two, inventory is wicked low. I have people right now, I have a couple that I literally got off the phone with last week that said, Dan, I want to sell and I wanna move up, but I don't see anything available that I wanna buy. So I'm hesitant to put my house on the market and basically have a 60-day window to find something I like, and I'm nervous that I'm not gonna find the house that I want. I can tell you there are a lot of people out there, which is just a self-feeding cycle of, well, I don't wanna put my house on the market because inventory's low, which makes inventory lower. So with all of that said, what advice would I give, right? One, it's gonna sound a little bit self-serving, but it's still a decent time to buy and sell, depending. It really depends on what your goals are and what your overall situation. If you're looking at buying, I will maintain to the advice I have always given. Make the decision when it makes sense for you and your family. Don't go out and buy and over leverage yourself because you think the market is going to continue to appreciate crazy. What if it doesn't? You just don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, right? Like maybe the thumbnail is me holding this crystal ball and it looking like I'm perfectly predicting the future. The reality is that there are master's degrees and PhDs that disagree with each other on where this is going. I'm giving you the basics of economics and why I think that where it's gonna go. But what I'm saying is you can get yourself into trouble by over speculating. The analogy that I gave Sean when we were talking about earlier is like Bitcoin. Unless you really are deep into the world of Bitcoin and know the moving parts and you really understand, Warren Buffett's quote is invest in what you understand. Unless you really understand it, speculation can be a very dangerous game. So go with the tried and true. When you get a 30-year mortgage at a fixed rate interest rate, that is a payment that's gonna stay the same. And when you buy a house that's well within your budget, this means that you can stay there for 5 or 10 or 15 years without necessarily being over leveraged or being in a house poor situation. So don't make a purchasing decision based out of fear or greed. Make it based out of wisdom and maybe even being a little bit conservative. I would say the same thing about selling. Yes, it may be tempting to throw your house on the market because, hey, I saw 20% appreciation this last year. I could pocket 50 or 70 grand into my pocket because I've seen so much in the short period of time. It's gonna look probably pretty good over the next few years. And if you're happy with where you live, go ahead and enjoy the ride of another few years of appreciation and pay that mortgage down a little bit further. Last piece of advice here is, what would it look like? What is the cost of waiting? So let's say that I'm just nervous about going out into the marketplace, but you have the ability to buy right around that average of 350. Well, if you're gonna buy today at 350 and we see 7% appreciation, so right around there what's being projected, that means next year that same house will probably be worth somewhere in the range of $375,000 1 year out. If interest rates rise to what we're assuming that they're going to go from this year to next year, say 3.25% to 4%, the difference between that payment and the next payment is about, let's see here, at 350, 3.25, that's 1525. That's assuming 20% down. Next year at 375, 20% down at 4% is 1766. So we're looking almost at $240. So yes, there is a cost to waiting. So if you have the ability to move forward, go for it. It's still a great market, but if you are not, it may make sense to wait. Because if you wait, the housing market might be a little less aggressive. I hope you found all of this super helpful. I cover things like this all the time, and if you want to hear more about our area, specifically neighborhood tours and the like, YouTube thinks that you'll like this next video right here.